there wasn't the understanding about warming up, about preventing injuries. And we used to get in and do length upon length of breaststroke before we'd even warmed up our bodies. And I ended up with a condition now. I can never remember if I say it properly, but I think it was called condylomalacia patella. And it was breaststroker's knee, basically. Right. And it was kind of a repetitive strain injury. And it wasn't good. It kind of finished my career as such. And I remember being in the Northern Counties in a big competition, hoping to be able to qualify for the nationals, and I dove into the pool and felt a crack in my knee and was fished out by the lifeguards. Quite embarrassing as a 15-year-old, but that was it. I was kind of done, and it was very much okay. Swimming is a big part of our lives. My mum's a coach. My dad was involved with the swimming club when he was home. My sisters were both swimmers, and it's I either do something or I sit at home on my own.
From Coordinate Sports, it's The Drive Phase, a show about sports founders, leaders and experts and the stories behind their business journeys. Our guest on this episode is Ali Beckman, Technical Director of Puddle Ducks. Ali is on a mission to give children the opportunity to access high-quality swimming lessons and become lifelong swimmers. The company has grown by 20% since the pandemic, and we discuss the challenges this brings, as well as the infrastructure and workforce gaps she's working hard to address. During the episode, we hear Ali's journey from promising junior swimmer into coaching and then joining Puddle Ducks at the early stages and scaling to the national franchise it is today. A true example of turning your passion into your career. Enjoy the show. Okay, so I'm really excited to welcome Ali Beckman, Technical Director of Puddle Ducks, the franchise teaching more than 25,000 children to swim every week across the UK. Welcome to the show, Ali.
Good morning.
Morning. Yeah, managed to get through our technical difficulties to start with, and we're raring to go. So what we normally do is introduce you a little bit to the listeners and give a bit of a background, let them know a bit more about you, get to know you. So obviously we're going to talk a lot about swimming, but particularly what was your how would you describe your childhood? And I guess swimming's going to come up in that, but in general, your experience of sport as a kid?
Yeah, a bit of a strange one, really. My mum was a swimmer. My grandfather was a swimmer. Swimming was kind of, you're going to do it. That's it, really. But interestingly, I
So were you in the pool, early morning pool session? Well, 4 or 5 in the morning?
Yeah, to start with, not. I was actually, believe it or not, the last person in my class to achieve their 10 metres at the pool. We were fortunate at the school we had to have our own pool, but I constantly put my feet down, which obviously didn't get me my 10 metres badge. But yeah, so that was in primary school. We went to primary school, obviously, swimming lessons, local baths as well. So, being exposed to swimming, I think I was very, very lucky with, my dad worked away a lot. He was an HGV driver, but my mum always took us to sporting clubs. We did gymnastics, we did running, anything that was out there to keep us busy, 3 girls. And yes, we did it, but swimming was kind of always that main sport that she wanted us to do because it was something she was involved with. And so I don't know, I think I was probably about 9 or 10 when I went to local swimming club. And I remember my mum, she didn't drive and she still doesn't drive now, but she'd walk us up. God, it used to take us about 40 minutes to the pool 2 or 3 times a week, and a really, really old pool for us to have our swimming lessons. And,
is this in Manchester you grew up?
So, yes, I'm originally from Salford, which is Greater Manchester, and she used to walk us from Salford up to Swinton, the old Swinton baths. And so that's kind of my introduction to swimming.
It's a big commitment as well. It's swimming for swimming club, a lot of training, isn't there? And early mornings and stuff. But
well, the swimming club was kind of a few nights a week. It wasn't really, when I say it wasn't serious, it was serious stuff. We were swimming a lot, but it was only when we joined a squad that it became serious. And I joined, it was now City of Salford. It used to be Salford Triple S, it was called back then. And that's when it started to get serious. That was your early morning training and, giving up your social life. And when all my teenage friends were, going to parties and hanging around on street corners, and that was the thing back then. And I kind of missed out on that, but I had a lot of friends at the swimming club and the swimming squad, so I divided my time really between the swimming club and the swimming squad. And I think my mum, once she started taking us to the swimming club, she kind of got roped into doing a little bit here and there, and then is it nearly 40 years later? I can't even remember. Nearly 40 years later, and she's still involved with that same swimming club. Brilliant. That walked us up to every single week. And she's been the head coach, I think, there for about 35 years.
How would you say it's changed? I guess, like, I'm thinking about my experience in school. I'm not a strong swimmer, but I remember going to school. The lessons we had in school, kind of, I don't know, the only memory I've got is like super chaotic, and there's like all my class in at once doing widths, and it's just arms and legs everywhere. I mean, I don't know. Is that how it is now? Obviously not from a Puddle Ducks angle, we'll talk about that. But
yeah, I think there's so many different elements. I mean, you look at what you're supposed to do when you leave school. I mean, these days, they want you to leave primary school to having completed 25 metres kind of competently and confidently. You've got to be introduced to different strokes. They want you to be kind of perform a self-rescue in an emergency situation. That's what we're looking at now. Back then, it was, let's get you across the pool. That was it. They didn't care what you looked like. It was more, we want to introduce you to swimming. And now there's a lot more box ticking. They want children to be safe. And of course, that's what we all want to do. But back then, I don't know, it was bizarre, really. There was a lot of kids in the pool.
That's what I remember thinking. I remember now, like you see swimming lessons now, and probably, I say with Puddle Ducks, what is it, maybe 6 or 12 at a time?
Maximum of 10 in our classes. And obviously that will reduce if the pool is smaller. But yeah, I just remember, and if listeners are from around the area, Broughton Baths, it was called. And I just remember there's a great video on YouTube, and it goes around social media, where it's in China, and there's just thousands of people in this swimming pool, and there's this big wave. And when I see it, I think about my swimming lessons as a child. There seemed to be 3 or 4 different schools there at the time, and I'm sure it wasn't like that. But yeah, everywhere I looked, there were swimmers. So yeah, I think things are a little bit different now. Health and safety has changed a lot around swimming pools and ratios, etc. But I think back then they certainly didn't understand about ratios.
So you obviously heavily involved in the club, but like your mum as well. So did you go in to do any natural progression as you get to like 18, 19? Did you go on to do coaching as well at the club, or was?
Yeah, so it was a bit strange for me because my kind of swimming career, if we can call it a swimming career, was cut short. I was a breaststroke swimmer, and I think again back then there wasn't the understanding about warming up, about preventing injuries. And we used to get in and do length upon length of breaststroke before we'd even warmed up our bodies. And I ended up with a condition now. I can never remember if I say it properly, but I think it was called condylomalacia patella. And it was breaststroker's knee, basically. Right. And it was kind of a repetitive strain injury. And it wasn't good. It kind of finished my career as such. And I remember being in the Northern Counties in a big competition, hoping to be able to qualify for the nationals, and I dove into the pool and felt a crack in my knee and was fished out by the lifeguards. Quite embarrassing as a 15-year-old, but that was it. I was kind of done, and it was very much okay. Swimming is a big part of our lives. My mum's a coach. My dad was involved with the swimming club when he was home. My sisters were both swimmers, and it's I either do something or I sit at home on my own, and that's how I got involved with kind of the teaching and the coaching side. So I was very, very young to get involved. And I think I had a couple of years away from it where I did rebel. I thought, well, this has taken over my life for the last few years, and actually I need a break from it. But you just gravitate back towards it. It just happens. So yeah, so my teaching and coaching.
When was that? Was that around, are we talking, because I'm thinking Manchester Commonwealth Games and stuff like that. Was that a big part of swimming in the area?
Yeah, my mum was actually a chaperone there. So she went along to that. She had a couple of swimmers there. Yeah, I think probably I must have been, I can't even remember what year it was. I was probably about, I don't know, it was about 26. I can't remember what year it was now. But I think, I had a bit of a break. I think I had a break from about 16 to 18, that kind of period where I'm out with boys and things like that. So, but yeah, I certainly came back to it. I started working at a university. When all my friends went off to uni, I was working at a uni. They had a swim squad there. So I was kind of involved in that as well. So there was always something, and it was always volunteering. There wasn't many paid swimming jobs back then. Everybody volunteered to be swimming team.
Yeah, that's probably what we're going to talk about moving on. I know off the recording we were talking about kind of workforce and stuff like that. So how did you find your journey to to Puddle Ducks? Because you there from like early on, was it? Well, you're not initially founder, but you were there from like early stages of the company.
Yeah, well, the company's Puddle Ducks is 20 years old this year, so formed in 2002. And yeah, they'd been going for a couple of years before I found it. And I relocated from Manchester over to Northwich. I met my husband, he was living over here, so I came over here. Not a million miles away from Manchester, only 45, 50 minutes, but it felt it at the time. And yeah, we were married, we had our first child. He arrived the day before our first wedding anniversary, so that put paid to any celebrations there. But yeah, so swimming was obviously a huge part of my life, but baby swimming wasn't. You know, I was a teacher, a coach, but not considered baby swimming. It was just one of those things you took your child.
That's true, because you're probably coaching people who obviously can already swim, right? You weren't in the club scenario. You're not teaching people to swim, right? It's more the
Learn to Swim program really started for me at school age. So they would come in. You know, they had armbands on. Some of them had never been exposed to water before, but certainly it certainly wasn't anybody under the age of 4. So it was very, very different. And yeah, I searched for swimming lessons and took my son along. And the very first lesson, I was completely hooked on what baby swimming was all about. And that was it, really. I did some research. I wanted to know all about why baby swimming was very different to, teaching older children.
Did you have a light bulb to be like, I can do this.
Yeah.
I can do this better. Or I can add something to this. Or what was it? I'm thinking you come in with all that history of swimming and thinking, what's in it?
I think that's what it was. Tracy and Joe, who founded Puddle Ducks, are fabulous businesswomen, and they had set an amazing company up and were teaching absolutely brilliant lessons. And I will never take that away from them. But there was just something at the back of my mind which thought, you know what, I've got all of this experience in the swimming industry, and I want to do this. I want to see where baby swimming could take me. And I was really honest, this is what I would like to do. And I'm more than happy to set up as a competitor, because at the time there wasn't that many baby swimming companies about, but they gave me an opportunity and they said, come along and join us. I had the expertise. And also I didn't know about the Swimming Teachers Association. I was very much ASA, which obviously is now Swim England. And it was Learn to Swim and, coaching side, teaching and coaching, where I then got introduced to the Swimming Teachers Association, and their approach was very different. It was all, I'm not saying everything was holistic, but it was in the water, it was working with babies, and it just seemed to resonate with me. I wanted to know more. I wanted to know about child development. I wanted to know about child psychology, about reflexes, everything that was kind of the foundations of baby swimming. Because when you're teaching a baby to swim, you're not actually teaching them to swim, because actually there's not much they can do with their arms and limbs, their arms and legs at a very, very young age. But what you are doing is building the foundations for that to come afterwards. And I think with baby swimming is very, very different. It's about psychology. It's about understanding child development. And for me, that appeal, that it just drew me in. I was desperate to know more about it. And Tracy and Joe gave me that opportunity. They welcomed me in. And I can't remember when I joined. I think it was about this time, actually. I think it was about March. I think I just had my anniversary, actually. And yeah, I was only there for 6 months. And it was very much, right, can you write the lessons for us? So that was a massive opportunity for me.
What did the business look like at that point then? So was it really early stages? Are you franchised already, or what was
Yeah, no, they hadn't franchised. So they'd set the business up. They both had babies on the same day. And both those girls were 21 at the weekend. And yeah, so they spoke about it. They wanted to learn more about baby swimming. They loved going swimming together, but they didn't know enough about it. And Tracy found a company called Birthlight, which looked at holistic baby teaching. And she went on one of the very first courses. And then they set up, and they were only teaching a couple of mornings a week. And then they stopped and went off and had a second baby. So I think by the time I joined them, the company was going about 2 years, but they were only teaching, I think it used to be a Tuesday and a Thursday morning. So it was established in that, they were running the business, they understood the business, but not as many lessons. I came along and then we started to build those lessons, but the business wasn't franchised until about 5 years later. I think for me, that was very, very important. And because They wanted to understand the business model themselves. They wanted to get it right before they franchised it. So, they worked hard on understanding how businesses work and just making sure everything was right before they sold it. So there's other franchising companies out there. Some of them franchised straight away and therefore, are bigger than us, but they waited. And actually, looking back, I still think it was the right thing for them to do.
So what was that process like? I guess our listeners would be interested, some of them probably considering whether or not to franchise their business now, or maybe having some growing pains. What was, when you made that decision and was it an easy decision to go say, right, this is definitely a franchise business versus a organic growth and setting up and managing for classes and locations?
I think it was a hard decision for them back then because it was their baby. There was only the three of us working there at the time. And I think it was actually quite an organic growth, really. We had somebody who was coming to the classes who was living in Chester, and they travelled over to Northwich, and she'd mentioned, I quite fancy doing this. And it's, okay, do we allow her to teach our lessons there? But how do we manage that? Because it's out of our territory. And actually, will we still have the quality control that we have with the lessons that are on our doorstep? So I think that query really started the thinking, and Tracy and Joe invested a lot of time in experts and, on the franchising side of things to make sure this is definitely what they wanted to do, because it is scary. As soon as you franchise out your business, you're giving somebody your brand, and you're giving somebody your brand to look after. And, ultimately, that brand is your business. And if that brand is tarred in one area, it tars the whole brand, across the country. So it's really, really scary. But like I say, I think for Tracy and Joe, certainly the business side of things, it was understanding absolutely everything about it and having processes in place, having business manuals, operations manuals, having systems in place, databases that you can then allow other franchisees to use. And that was the hard side of it, is getting all of that in place. So I think anybody that's interested in franchising, there's an investment to be made in your business first to make sure that others can pick it up. Because Tracy, Joe and myself as well, a lot of it was in our head because we were living this day to day, but actually, how do we put that in paper? And Tracy and Joe did the business side, and I did all the kind of the technical side. I was going to say,
I guess your role changed significantly. So once you've gone into franchising, your role's gone from, is it obviously organically or working in the Northwich area and working with the staff there, to now Were you up and down the country training people?
It was. We started with Chester. We trained them, and then our next ones was Bristol and Bath, and then Dorset. And they were two friends who came along, and that was kind of our first official training course. And that was down to me to get them trained up. But it's really scary to know that this person's going to the other end of the country teaching our lessons, and actually, how do I check they're doing it properly? And that started those visits, and we call them our annual technical visits, where we go out and check that everything is still being done as we expect it to be done. And that's not just on the technical, the teaching side, but obviously running the business as well. So the bigger we grew, obviously I had to get a team in place then to help me, because I couldn't be everywhere. But, for those first few years, it was mainly me driving around and checking everything was okay. And then we put structures in place. So the franchisees would have a senior teacher who would then maintain quality standards within that franchise. And then I would support the senior teachers. So when we look back of, what it used to be and now, over 300 teachers, we're running training courses every other month. I have a team of 11, 12 people who support me in going around the country. Yeah, quite scary really when you think how big we've done. But yeah, franchising it's hard work. Like I say, I think anybody who's thinking about doing it, make sure it works for you first. And actually everything that you have in your head has to be down on paper. If you're going to get anybody to run a business the way you're running it, they need to understand it. And
definitely not. So you can't take it for granted that they'll do it the same way you would.
I think after my first technical manual, the teacher manual, I think it was about 2 inches thick.
What is it now? Is it the same or bigger now?
Yeah, it's kind of changed.
It's
we do a lot of stuff on e-learning, and it's a lot more streamlined, and we're still streamlining. We will continue to streamline, but things have changed massively since back then.
And so just in terms of numbers, how many franchises you started off with those 3 initial ones? What kind of numbers are you up to now in terms of franchise owners?
4 franchisees, I think. So our franchisees kind of buy a territory, they get It can be a small territory, it can be a large territory, but I think we cover about 60% of the UK now. So we've only got one franchise in Scotland at the moment. She launched a couple of years ago. We've got nothing in Northern Ireland, but we've got Wales and the majority of England. We've got a few patches which, you know, a little bit bald and like to fill. But yeah, we've got a franchise discovery day coming up in it, and it's probably going to be done by the time this podcast is aired, because there's lots of people out there who potentially got made redundant during the pandemic and are sitting there thinking about what they can do with that redundancy payment. And yeah, owning a franchise is just, it's amazing. It really
freedom,
is.
isn't it? I mean, so you mentioned the pandemic then. What was that like for you? I'm guessing we always try and keep it a little bit positive on the show, but I'm guessing that must have been one of the biggest challenges for the business.
Scary. Yeah, really, really scary. I think, you know, the whole leisure industry shut down. That was that. And actually, we were one of the last ones to come back. And yeah, waiting and knowing that the teachers, you know, weren't working, and the franchisees, obviously the franchisees, they own the franchise, they're self-employed, you know, so they weren't earning as well. And that's hard. We can only pay people if we've got the money coming in from the swimming lessons. So yeah, we just shut absolutely everything down. And I remember doing a video the day that it was announced, and I recorded a video from my teachers, because I'm very much, I want to have that kind of face-to-face contact with my teachers through our forums and everything. I think that's really important. And it took me forever to record a video. And I was like, what do I say? You know, what does anybody say with everything that's going on? But you know what? I think we finished with 21,000 customers. The day that we were shut down, we had 21,000 customers. We're now at 25,000 customers. So we've come back. There was casualties. We lost over 100 teachers. And that was, many of them just had to go and get work. They went to work at shopping centres, you know, at supermarkets, etc. Some went into different careers, some went back to teaching in schools. I think we've had about 20 of them come back since.
I mean, this is a difficulty across the, well, not just in our sector, but across society, kind of getting those trained staff back into the, bringing, obviously recruiting new staff, but the ones you've lost, are they coming, you feel like you said you got 20 back, 20% essentially?
Well, the ones, I think for over the 100 we lost, we got 20 of those coming back to us when obviously there was a little bit more stability. We've actually trained, I think, 137 teachers since. So since we were shut down, once we could start running training courses, we were able to start training again. And I think it was about 137. So the teachers are coming back. They're coming back into the industry, hopefully, but there's still a massive shortage. And I think there was uncertainty, you know, a lot of the swimming teachers are self-employed. So, you know, they were struggling, and there was that fear, are we going to get locked down again? And we did have so many different lockdowns, as you know, and as everybody knows. And every time there was that uncertainty. So I think a lot of people wanted that stability. But, you know, things are changing now. I'm really, really fortunate in the role that I have. I'm now the president of the Swimming Teachers Association. So that Swimming Teachers Association that I was completely, you know, bowled over by 20 years ago, I thought it was amazing. I'm now their president. So that to me is just, yeah, I absolutely adore that. It's a wonderful role, and to be able to help the rest of the industry is just amazing for me. But last year, there were so many organisations shouting about, there's no teachers, we've got no teachers, we need teachers. And the CEO, Dave Candler of the STA, last October said, that's it, I've had enough. I'm fed up of people shouting about it. We're going to do something about it. And the STA set up Stand Up for Swimming, and decided to pledge tens of thousands of the charity funds this year in their 90th anniversary year to train hundreds of swimming teachers around the UK for free. So you're talking courses, you know, £500-600 sometimes. They said, we will fund everything. So this year, we're hoping that there's going to be a huge increase in the amount of teachers coming back into the industry or joining the industry for the first time.
How does someone access that? Is that just open to anyone who wants to become a teacher, like, I guess, career change, or just really wants to get involved?
Yeah, they have to be nominated. They have to be nominated by somebody. So
like a club or a company like yourselves?
Swimming club, swim school, leisure centre, and they can just go onto the STA website and they can fill a nomination form out. And what they're doing is they're looking, as soon as they get so many people in one area, they'll put another course on. But they've already trained hundreds, and that's for the entire 2022 in their anniversary year. So we're hoping, and it is, we've got people that are now coming into into our training courses with these qualifications, so we know it's working.
And I guess because the demand, like you mentioned there, just for yourselves at Puddle Ducks, is what's that 20% increase from pre-pandemic numbers. A couple of questions on that one. Obviously, the demand's there, and we're talking about it all the time on the pod as well. That children have had such a hard time over the last couple of years. They're coming out of that now, and everyone seems to be seeing the increase in demand and increase in bookings, etc. But that for you as well, that early age, how are you kind of managing that? Because I've got a 2-year-old as well, so she was 1 in the pandemic. She missed all of what she would have done in terms of swimming at that age. But how's that impacting you? You got adding additional lessons on to kind of cater for that, or do you think it's the time that they've just missed that opportunity to learn that early stage swimming skill?
I think the Puddle Ducks lessons are very different to many out there. I mean, there's a lot of companies that do, but we accept children at any age. A lot of these swim companies will kind of do a block booking of 10 weeks. So you join on week 1 and then you do 10 weeks. And if you miss kind of that first week, you have to wait for kind of the next lot of lessons to start. Ours are very different. You can join in at any age, at any time. So they're kind of rolling lessons, and we adapt the way we teach for those new entries. So, I think our barrier is swimming pools, is the lack of swimming pools. We lost 90 pools during the pandemic. And I think 63 have come back online. We don't know whether some more of them will come online, but I think that is the biggest barrier we have now, is that lack of venues, the facilities.
What type of pools are you working with? Sorry to cut you off there. Is it generally like leisure centres? Is it just a wide mix, or is it leisure centres private?
No, it's not leisure centres, actually. We would love to work with more leisure centres, but a lot of the leisure centres do their own lessons, and we need warmer pools for babies. I mean, obviously we've got a learn to swim programme as well, and an aquanatal programme. So, we can teach in cooler pools, but leisure centres tend to have their own lessons. They don't tend to hire out as much. Most of our pools are either private school pools and community centres. But yeah, we have the odd leisure centre. But yeah, that's the biggest thing, is those pools that we had before, mainly in schools, have not come back on board.
Is that because it's not viable then, or is it like financially viable for the school to open it up? Or
yeah, a lot of it when we first came back was due to kind of COVID restrictions. So if the pool is accessible outside, then we could use it. If you had to go through the school to access the pool, they were obviously they needed to safeguard the children, and therefore they didn't want extra people in there because of COVID. So some of those have come back online now. The ones that we're finding not coming back online are the ones where they're in additional needs schools, where they're still being obviously very protective and making sure that the children are safe. So there's a delay with that. Some of the hospital pools are the same. There's obviously that fear that, the COVID obviously is still around, and they don't want to have people coming into the pools. But a lot of the community centres can't afford to run anymore. There's a lot of pools that are kind of coming to the end of the shelf life now, and potentially we're coming to the end of the shelf life just before the pandemic hit, and they've just mothballed them. Yeah. And I think with the cost and utility bills at the moment as well, it's just everything is getting more expensive, and pools are struggling. There's so many campaigns out there to save pools, and it's sad, really sad. So yeah, pools are our biggest issue. Teachers and getting teachers in as well. We're doing a bit of a recruitment campaign at the moment. We need more teachers. We need to show them it's an amazing industry to come to. And yeah, we've certainly got career opportunities within our company, and that's what we're working on. So we're hoping by the time this podcast is out, we've a lovely recruitment video. We've got more people coming on board.
We'll definitely link that for you in the show notes. So anyone listening will link to the video for sure. Last question on facilities. If you were looking at, obviously the pandemic's taken like an acute impact, but over the last 20 years, because I'm trying to think in my local area how many new pools have been built in that time. So from when you started to now, do we actually have more pools in the country or not, or is it kind of as it was, or less than we used to? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't think we have. I think there's a focus very much on people trying to build their own pools at the moment. We've just built our own pool. So that opened, it was due to open up a lot earlier, but obviously COVID put pay to that. So we opened that up in August last year, and we are doing phenomenally well. We've got a model now. We want to obviously make sure that we can encourage franchisees to build, but lots of people are looking at pool build now to manage that themselves. The costs are not great.
What type of investment is that to build a pool?
Yeah, do you know what? It varies. You can have a pop-up pool for £50,000 to £100,000. You can be paying $1 million for a pool. There's so many different models, and I think there's companies out there now that will provide that for you. This support, we've used some fantastic companies, but having our own place has made a huge difference. We've got the offices there. We've got a room that can be hired. A viewing gallery. We've got a teaching pool, and we've already got 300 people on a waiting list, and we've just filled that pool, and we're using every hour that we can, and we've still got a huge waiting list. So the demand is out there. But I think,
how's it getting impacted with utilities, and is that been spiking in the last month or so in terms of because obviously you've got to keep the pools nice and warm, so
we're waiting for those bills to come through.
I was going to say, it might be not a nice let us open that one.
It's a little bit scary. It's affecting everybody. We know that. But I think more so when you own your own pool, it's a little bit scary. But it's been the best thing we did. Certainly, we've taken control, because there's so many pools out there that are closing. You can't rely on them. You really can. And having your own pool, you've got control of that part of your business. Definitely
integrating it seems like the way to go. Just on an approach side, 20 years in the industry and building a business, have you kind of developed, your approach to leading and managing, building teams, etc.? Have you got any kind of, particular theories or approaches that you use when you're building a team and managing it? You said you're really face to face, and like they said with the video and stuff. But
I don't know whether I'm very different to other kind of managers, directors. I don't know, but I'm very much. We started this. I joined Puddle Ducks because I love swimming, and I wanted to make a difference. My work, obviously, over the last 18 years of Puddle Ducks has changed dramatically. I've gone from teaching to managing and to, ensuring the network does what they're supposed to be doing. And actually, I don't have time to teach anymore, but I do teach. And I think that's the biggest thing for me. If I am going to ask my teachers to do something, I should be prepared to do it myself. And it's the one thing that is very, very important to me. I treat everybody the same. I do every role. So, we've got teachers, we've got poolside assistants who take the registers, who clean up. I've done that role for years. And I think that's really, really important. No matter where you are in that business, whatever role you hold, you have to be able to do what everybody else is doing. And that's how you earn the respect. And I'm in touch with my teachers. I'm in touch with them daily on Facebook. We've got Facebook forums. I share hints and tips. I run live meetings, and I don't ever want to be detached from that. And I think if I was detached from that, I think that's when that respect is lost. And, I hope my teachers and the rest of the franchisees feel that I'm with them, I'm in touch with them. And I do get excellent feedback from all of them. And I think that's very, very important to me. If you're going to do something, if you're going to ask somebody to do something, make sure you can do it yourself.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like you mentioned there, doing all those roles or still being in touch with all those roles, you can obviously see where process or kind of the offer can be improved. You know what I mean? You can see it from a perspective of a teacher as well as a parent or the users of the service. You can hopefully make some adjustments there.
Yeah, and also engaging the teachers, that is really, really important to me. It's not about me writing lesson plans for them to deliver and not taking their thoughts into account. So, every single week I ask the teachers, what do you like? What don't you like? What would you like to change? And, with my technical team, we'll look at how we can develop lessons. And obviously, it's not just what's happening internally. There's best practice in the industry that you take into consideration. There's new ways of children learning. There's always new research coming out, and it's important to have that as well. But engaging your team is, for me, very, very important, and giving them the rewards as well. Somebody writes a new song to be delivered in one of the baby classes, let everybody know who it was that wrote that song. It's not just about me. And that is very, very important to me, is being part of that team.
Definitely. And I guess, obviously, leading the organisation, director level can be a lonely place sometimes, or a lot of the time. Do you have anything that you use to kind of deal with, stress management or stay on top form? Any kind of routines or habits, stuff you do every day that keeps you performing at the top level, or even just keeps you sane?
Yes, I love to take my dog out. I love listening to music or podcasts and just wandering around with my dog. I have a whippet, so there's not as much dog walking, rather than watching him run like a lunatic, which is
throwing the ball for him.
But for me, exercise, yoga, open water swimming, just spinning. I've got a spin bike, so every morning I'll jump on that. That's my time to kind of switch off. open water swimming, really important. You've got nothing around you, and just general water sports. We are a big water sport family, as you can imagine. So paddle boarding and kayaking and any opportunity to be near the sea, and I'm happy. But yeah, it's all about swimming in our household.
And I wanted to ask you about something. I know you've got a YouTube channel with you've got video lessons on YouTube. Is that right?
We have,
maybe
yes.
People can't access. Maybe not in the area for Puddle Ducks, or maybe
it was really important to us many years ago that swimming is expensive. We know it's expensive. It is a life skill. It is something that everybody should do, but it's not as accessible to everybody. So we created a YouTube channel, and we put some how-to videos on there. And it was just making sure that if you can't go to swimming lessons, go to your pool, do these activities, and all of them will lead to your child being able to swim eventually. So there's kind of a little toolbox there of activities that people can do. So
I was going to say I love that, because I guess I don't know any other parents are the same. You've got young kids. When you go on holiday, you've got so much time with them in the pool. You kind of like, after a while, throwing them up and down, throwing them around, probably not. You're thinking maybe I should be teaching them something. So that's a great resource for anyone who's hopefully gone on holiday this year, for sure. Last question for me is a bit of a reflective one. Actually, before I get into that, I know you're growing and you're coming back from the pandemic, but do you have like any milestones that you're looking for, like the next one? Is it to get to X number of franchises, or is it to just fill the gaps, or is it to go international? Have you got like your goals and aims for the next maybe 3 to 5 years?
I think it's making franchisees have the opportunity to have their own pool. I think that's really important, is to be able to manage their business much better with their own venue. That's one of the things we would love to see. Would love to support them in that area. So, that's one of our goals. We've not looked at international. We're very much focused on the UK, certainly at the moment. But just building a network of getting more children, into swimming. The industry is big enough for everybody, and we know that there's thousands and thousands of children not hitting those milestones. Many children are dropping out of learn to swim programs too early. It's kind of that tick box exercise for some parents. Okay, they've got the 25 meters, that's actually all they need. There's so much more to swimming. It's not just about that life skill, it's the social side, it's the health benefits, and it is a skill for life. So I think, raising that awareness as well is very important to us. But building the business, getting more people in, the more teachers we have, the more children we can teach to swim.
I don't know if there's any pool in the country or any company that don't have a waiting list for swimming lessons. So building that capacity, like you said, rather than having to get more and more franchisees, just helping them to grow and take on the demand that they've got is huge.
We'd love to fill the UK with franchises. That is definitely our ultimate goal, and grow that network. If we grow the network, we're, putting more lessons on for children, and that's what it's all about. That's why the business was started, and that's what we're still here to do, is to provide that life skill and that, loving swimming for life.
Definitely. So question I was going to ask you is, reflecting, and we were talking about your son earlier, I guess this is advice for your younger self, so probably his age he is now, like kind of 18, 19, going through exams or stuff, about to start his career and stuff. What advice would you go back and tell yourself if you had the opportunity at that early age?
Do you know what? Don't do anything different. I will be really, really honest. And find something that you love and turn it into your career. If we work so much, so long in our lives, and if you don't enjoy your job, it affects every part of your life. I have been so fortunate to be able to turn my passion into a career, and I've worked in the industry now for 32 years, so that's giving my age away because I was 15 when I finished swimming, but I've worked in the industry for 32 years, and I have been so fortunate to be able to do what I'm doing. And I think if you find something that you love, you will be able to turn it into a career, and you'll love work for the rest of your life then, and it doesn't seem like work. And I'll just give you a prime example. My husband was in a corporate job for 20 years and he didn't enjoy it. He really didn't enjoy it. He had an opportunity a couple of years ago to take a secondment and worked in a charitable role, and he completely flourished. His outlook on life changed completely, and he got made redundant recently, and it was very much, do I go back into the corporate world, or actually do I stay with what I'm doing? It's like you stay with what you love, and he's changed completely because of it. And so if I had to go back, I wouldn't change anything because I've managed to do what I do. But telling anybody at the age where they're coming out of college now is just find something you love and actually just try things. There's no rush,
because that can be a challenge as well for some people. Like you said, you knew from the start what you were in, like you love swimming from an early age. Some people maybe don't know what their passion is yet. So trying different things and finding it.
There's far too much pressure on children to achieve and to go go into a role which, people feel they should be going into, and actually, no, I've said to both of my children, I don't care what you do as long as you are happy. And both of them know that. And I think because I've got that attitude, both of them are very, very relaxed about it. And my son is still, he's found his passion, obsessed with physics and, geeky astrophysics stuff. But he's so passionate about it. And that's where he sees his career going. And again, I say, if that's what you want to do, if that's what you love, you'll make it happen. But don't feel you ever need to do something just because it's expected of you, because it certainly isn't in our household.
And don't ask me for help with your homework either.
Yeah, do not ask me for help. He's the kind of person, we stayed in London a couple of weeks ago. We went to the theatre, we had a theatre weekend, and we'd been to see a film, I can't even remember what it was called now, but there was something in it about the rockets, and he wasn't happy with the equation. And when I woke up in the hotel in the moment, there was all these receipts with all these equations, and
awesome.
I don't understand any of this. Yeah.
Oh, he sounds like a prodigy anyway. Ali, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you giving up. I know you're really busy, so thanks for your time. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to this week's show. You can subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can write to us at dryphase.podcast@coordinate.cloud, tweet us at coordinatesport, or follow us on Instagram at coordinate_sports, or on my account at James_Ventures. This episode was produced by Nancy Kwamboka, with support from Claire Goodchild and Lola Small, with special thanks to Rochelle. I'm James Moore, and you've been listening to The Drive Phase from Coordinate Sport.